Madam.
Good afternoon. I wanted to be sure you're in class, and thank you for organizing the class.
Most welcome. Pleased to have you.
Thank you. Now, I'm to take you three related topics in equity. The first one is rescission. The second one is rectification. And the third one is delivery up. Let me start by saying that rescission and rectification conform to their normal use in English language. Rescission and rectification conform to their normal use, in other words, the ordinary usage in English language, which is then translated into law, or which then metamorphizes into its use in law, in legal terminology. So what I've said, to repeat myself, is that I'm taking you three related topics: rescission, rectification, and delivery up. And I want to start by some kind of preliminary remarks that rescission and rectification conform to their normal usage in English language, then metamorphizes into its understanding in legal terminology. But however, delivery up is the one that is altogether technical legal language. Now, for this class, this particular class, I'm going to look at the undertones, the underpinnings of the topics and why they exist. In the coming class, I would look at the core legal nature and structure of the principles in equity. And I should think at that class that my lecture with you will end with the next class. Now, in this class, I want to commence, and that's why one of the reasons too, I wanted to make sure that the class rep is around. So the class rep, I need you to take down these questions, and that this is going to form the class today. Questions are: one, everybody should take down the questions, but I also want the class rep to note the questions. So take note of the questions. The first thing is, what is the main driving force of equity? That is the first question is, what is the main driving force of equity? The second question is, what is your view of contracts? Contract itself in human engagement. What is your view of contracts? Maybe I need to qualify it a bit, but ordinarily I shouldn't, because you are now experienced law students having done contract in 200 levels. So gone in 200 level, you've done 300, and now you're in 400. But because of those who may not understand, let me qualify it. What is your view of contract in law? Or should we say contract law? But actually, I'm not talking about contract law. I'm talking about contract. So, but let's put it this way. Let me qualify it a bit further. What is your view of contract and contract law in human engagement? Did you get that? Please, I need to hear your voices to let me know that I'm still online and you are online as well.
We can hear you, ma.
Yes, sir, we can hear you, ma.
Excellent. Thank you so much. It's so good to hear your voices. Now, so what is your view of contract and contract law in human engagement? That's the second question. And the third question is is one that I will address you on. However, you will get the real gist after the class on Wednesday. Now, that third question is, in what way do you consider the elements of the remedies? In what way do you consider that the elements of the remedies justify their validity? Do I need to repeat myself on that?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. In what way do you consider that the elements of the remedies justify their validity and legitimacy? Their validity and legitimacy. We got it?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so please.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Now, please, can you begin to speak to me on number one? What is the main driving force of equity? Who is starting? You can raise your hands if you want to talk. Then I'm going to be able to call you so that we are orderly. Yeah, I can see one hand. Oya Oye. Oyinkan?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, please speak.
So the main driving force of equity is to ensure that there's justice and to also provide additional remedies or solace whenever common law can maybe feel void or common law remedies are not enough.
Okay. What is the driving force? Oyinkan?
Equality.
No. I'm asking you to define something first. What do you consider a driving force?
Okay. So a driving force is mainly something that propels or the
Yes,
main
sir.
aim or intention of something.
Could we call it, for instance, the engine?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, excellent. So we understand one another. So now, please, could you repeat your answer?
Okay. So what I actually stated was that the main driving force of equity is to ensure equality and justice, and also to step in to maybe fill the gap of common law. Or wherever common law is silent on certain things, equity steps in.
Are those driving force or the character functions of equity?
Can say
Anyway,
both.
thank you,
Sorry,
Oyinkan.
ma'am.
Let somebody else add a voice. Baba Rinde,
Okay, ma. Good morning, ma.
come on. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, ma. Sorry. So let's explain that a driving force is a powerful factor or an influence that propels something. That can
Okay.
be the main reason or the motivation. And I can say that the main driving force behind equity is the pursuit for fairness and justice. Where everyone has equal opportunity and access to resource remedies, and also there's also a desire to address inequalities and also to promote social equality across different areas of life.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Fisayo. That's those are the key ways in which equity has emerged. Okay. Thank you. Irek, I can't see the full name here, but you can just speak. You are the next. Can't see
Okay,
you.
good afternoon, Ma.
Yeah, please go on.
So, for me, the driving force of equity is basically to mitigate the harshness of common law.
Yeah, okay, that your name is now out, Ugo. Yeah, to mitigate the harshness. Okay, thank you. That's still the characteristic of equity, isn't it? Yeah, Mubarak.
Okay, good afternoon, Ma. I think for me, the driving force of equity would be the implementation and the enforcement of these rules, because without the implementation and the enforcement of equity or rules of equity, then at some point it would actually stop being recognized as alternative ways of handling issues or adjudicating between parties and whatnot. So the constant implementation, recognition, and enforcement of these equity rules is, I think, one of the things that propels it to continue being used as a means to resolve disputes, as well as also satisfy the interest of parties.
Okay, thank you very much. Adeyeri, thank you very much. Okay, there's Uzo. Yes, Uzo.
Not simply put, I think the driving force of equity is justice.
So, are you saying that the common law did not offer justice?
Justice can be somewhat, I don't want to say objective in a sense, but by equating moral standards with the idea of by equating justice with the moral standard of what is fair, I think that is where justice comes in. And that's where equity comes in.
Moral standard.
Yes, ma'am.
What is moral? Are you trying to say that equity is not law? Because if by your answer, you would be suggesting that equity is not law, it's more of morality.
Okay. Okay.
And when you use justice, Uzo, how would you see a society that in our society they say that a father has the legitimate right, parents have the legitimate rights to kill their child. And I'm not talking about the year 00. I'm talking about in modern times, because this keeps happening. And I know that I read this in Times Magazine, and it did happen. So, I mean, the justice of the society is this, that parents have the right to kill their child because they brought the child into being. And so I read of the one where the parent, their young daughter, by young I mean, teenage into early 20s, was dating a man that they didn't subscribe to. And the two parents, father and mother, got the girl and killed her. And as far as they're concerned, that was justice, because they did not agree with what the child was doing. And in their society, their parents have the right to kill their child. And that is one society. And I know of another society where this may not be happening in modern times directly, but it did happen, where their law was that where a woman got to a certain age, that she was no longer useful. In their own conception, the woman was to die. And in this life, in this human society, there has also been law in India, which may still be happening, where they consider that when a man dies, his wife should follow. Wife should be prepared to die. So these are all societies, and these are laws, and these are, you can't say it's not justice because they feel with justice. And you can't say it's immoral because the whole society considered it moral. So I'll come back to you, Uzo. You can rethink your answer, and then we'll talk about it again. Olamikbosi.
Good afternoon, ma'am.
Good afternoon.
I think one of the propelling force of equity is people. So far, there's people in a society.
Thank you. You hit the nail on the head. People. So please go on. You can elaborate on what you want to say.
Okay, so I think that so far there is a group of people in a society or categories of people. There's going to be social imbalance. Some people are going to be higher than others in social status, in wealth, in all of that. So equity is coming as a form of fairness and a bit of balance to see that everybody, even regardless of the differences, nobody's treated nobody's treated indifferently, or nobody's treated in a way that does not conform to the rules, laws, or that will cause a bit of dissatisfaction or injustice, so to say. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Olamikbosi. Olamikbosi. Yeah. So my joy is overflowing, isn't it? May all our joy be. May
It
all our
means my wealth is increasing, ma.
It means
My
your
wealth
wealth.
is increasing.
Yeah, okay, yeah, that's all.
Yes.
My joy will be in overflow should
It will
be
be Ayo.
Ayo
Yes.
Mikos. Yeah, you're
Yes.
right.
Yes, ma'am.
Well, just remember that it's Ayo that should propel wealth. Would you remember that?
Yes, I will.
So don't go in pursuit of wealth.
Oh, thank you, ma'am.
Because if you read Romeo and Juliet, which I tend to believe, your name is very key. I don't know if you read Romeo and Juliet anymore.
Yes, I did. Yes, I did, ma'am.
Name is very key. So don't let your name put you in the drive of pursuit of wealth. So shouldn't pursue anything as a matter of fact. We should just be calm and trust in the great flow of nature. Okay, Amaka, you want to contribute?
Yes, and thank you very much, Matt. So, in line with what the last speaker had said, so I felt
What
that
is her name?
Olamiposi, is
Thank
it right? Yeah, exactly. All right. So, I felt that the very drive force for equity is to ensure a good society, where everyone has equal access to opportunities regardless of their background. So, of course, we need
Let me
self.
ask you, Amaka, is it possible to impact on society without impacting on the individual?
It's the individual first.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So bear that in mind.
Okay.
Okay. Now, Esther. Esther.
Yes, ma'am. Good afternoon, ma.
So let me just go back to Amaka before you come in, Esther. So,
Okay.
what I try to point out to you is that when you're looking at law and you're answering questions in law, don't throw away the minor details. You went straight into society. You shouldn't forget that in providing a properly structured answer in law, And in fact, in living in law, living through law, or impacting on law, you must take all the nitty-gritties into account. Do you understand? The nitty-gritties into account. So when you have that at the back of your mind, before you go to society, you consider the individual. Do you understand? So you first consider the individuals. And this is why the utilitarian principle of law, the utilitarian theory of law failed. You know, that law is the happiness of the majority of society. No, it's not. Law is one that addresses the individual first, is the constituent happiness of each person as a being, as a human being, that now translates and metamorphizes into the happiness of society. So bear that in mind. Now, so you can now go on, Esther.
Okay, ma. Thank you, ma. Good afternoon, ma. So for me, I feel like one of the driving force in equity is remedy. That equity provides remedy when there's a wrong or injustice between individuals.
Yes, Esther, so in what way does that reduce the content of Olamipos' position that the driving force of equity is people, the people, as comprising so human society? In what way does your answer relate to that position?
Okay, ma. So there would, as human beings living in a society, as individuals living in a society, there's bound to be disputes, and there's bound to be disputes. So equity comes in to provide remedies when there are disputes between those individuals in the society.
Okay. Now, what I want you to bear in mind on this particular question and our interaction is that the driving force of equity is ethics. 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 It is not justice simpliciter. It is driving an ethical society comprised of ethical individuals. And that is why the word that runs through equity, one word that runs through equity, is conscionability in action of the human being. It's a subjective principle. Conscionability in action of the human being. And so the person that equity is against is that person who is acting unconscionably. Do you get my point? The one word that runs through equity in its function to provide remedies is conscionability of human action. And therefore, the person whom equity is against is that unconscionable individual. The person who is acting not unlawfully, but the person who is acting unconscionably. Not the person who is acting unlawfully. The person may be acting lawfully, but his action is unconscionable. Take the case of Keach and Sanford. I'm giving you an example. The case of Keach and Sanford, which is also known as the Romford Market case. the trustee was holding the trust of the property for a beneficiary. Now, when the lease to the existing lessee expired, the trustee was interested in taking the lease. He asked the beneficiary whether the lease was open and whether he take the lease. And are you listening to me? Whether you could see he's doing everything right and therefore everything lawfully. So he asked the beneficiary, "Can I take this?" Wasn't hiding it. And the beneficiary said, "Of course, you're my good friend, go take the lease." But when the beneficiary changed his mind and the matter went to court, the court said the trustee could not take the lease. Why? Because even though he had acted rightly and lawfully, he was unconscionable in his action. The trustee is the last person to benefit from the trust unless there is a clear position in the trust deed that allows for it. So the trustee is not to benefit. So based on that, the trust was cancelled. The lease which he took was cancelled. He couldn't take it. So the lease had to be put. And what is the reason for this? The reason for this is that if you allowed a trustee to benefit from the trust situation, then those who will act unconscionably will get up. This one has acted well, has acted within the law, even though unconscionable, because he ought to have known that he should not benefit from it. Then those people will arise, and then there will be beneficiaries who may not have the resource to come to court. And at any rate, equity is focused on ensuring that the human being is acting correctly, is acting ethically. Whether the person is before the law, is before other human beings or not. In other words, in your private regime, in the privacy of your own motives and intentions, equity is working to see that the motives and intentions are correct. This is not religion. It is the law. It is the jurisprudence of law. And this finds vent in the structure of justice, in the structure of the delivery of justice. So you will find that these ethical principles which equity drives are taken very seriously at the trial level. At the trial level. So in the magistracy and at the high court, the judge is the one that must ensure, he is the one that must take evidence. He's the one that sees the parties, and he is the one that has equitable truths at his hands to look at the conduct of the parties, the veracity of their evidence, the veracity of the witnesses, their comportment, their human structure, their humanity. So as a result of that, at the High Court, it is very important what a judge does. And that is why at the appellate levels, the Court of Appeal and Supreme Court, the Court of Appeal and Supreme Court are designed to look at review of the law which the judge applied, not the evidence, because at the High Court, the elementary level, that the law ensures that equity and the law are in place and balanced, because the judge is the one who takes evidence, sees the party, sees their comportment, you see, and records them. So somebody is playing music, and this is the way. After we finish discussing, the person will not understand because he's playing music instead of listening. Please mute your devices if you're not speaking. So does anybody want to address me on what I've just said before we move forward?
Ma, sorry, I did not hear the part of, you said that the Court of Appeal and Supreme Court are the ones who are designed to review. That was the last thing I heard before the
No, the
interruption.
Court of Appeal, I was making the point that at the trial level, you must bear in mind that the way the law is designed to balance law and equity, and to ensure the input of equity in the justice delivery and enforcement, is that at the trial level, the judge must bear in mind the principles of equity and the driving force of equity. So the judge is not just to apply the strict principles of law. No, the judge is to have in mind the driving force of equity. And because of that, in taking evidence, the judge must look at the ethical issues. What are the ethical issues? The comportment of the parties, the veracity of their statements, the conscionability of their actions. Is at that trial level that they are relevant. Okay? At the appellate levels of the Court of Appeal and the Supreme Court, what they are to do is to review the application of the law and the equitable principles by the trial courts. They are not to review evidence, except in very exceptional circumstances, where what is before them cannot adequately allow them to review the law. In other words, that would be an indictment on the trial court, that the trial court had not done its job. Do you understand me now?
Yes, ma.
So can you tell me what I said?
Okay, let me try. Okay, so you're talking about how the courts should balance law and equity and ensuring the input of justice delivery. So you said that the trial court is where the judge must bear in mind the principle of equity and the driving force of equity. And that it means that they should not just apply the law, but it should also bear in mind the ethical issues, which you said the comportment, the veracity, and the conscionability of the parties. And in the appellate courts and Supreme Court, they are designed to review the application of the law and equity.
Excellent.
And that, yes, okay.
Excellent. Yeah, the way the judge has applied law and equity, not to start calling for evidence. The appellate courts have no business with that. Unless in exceptional circumstances, except in exceptional circumstances. Just a minute. Except in exceptional circumstances, where in reviewing the law, they are unable to do so because the evidence before them is not adequate. in which case they may recall the parties to provide more information. But that will be an indictment on the trial court. So any one of you who happen to be a judge must bear this in mind. Do you understand me? That if at the appellate level, parties are being recalled to give evidence, then there's an indictment on the work of the judge. The judge has not done his work, his or her work. Now, I want you to look up the word in Ubuntu as we speak. Yeah, let's look up the word Ubuntu and let somebody. Yes. Onyinye Chukwu.
Ubuntu
Yeah, you can speak.
means humanity to others, or it means people.
Yes. Olamipoti.
Ma, yes, ma.
Does that give teeth to your answer?
Yes, it does, ma.
Okay. Now, Olamipoti, can you also look at Ubuntu and expatiate on its meaning and its origin?
Okay, just a minute, ma.
So you did not look before. You were not opening it before. Olamipoti.
I was. My network was fluctuating, so I was trying to get the balance of it. I'm coming. Let me just go back to my Chrome, my Safari. Okay, so ma, it says here that Ubuntu is an African word that means humanity to others. It is a philosophy that emphasizes the interconnectedness of people and the importance of community. It's a philosophy that also supports collectivism over individualism, and is a philosophy that emphasizes that society gives people their humanity.
Okay. So, the two reasons why I referred you to that structure is that I don't want anybody to wake up and say, oh, I am teaching Western philosophy. Olamipoti, you are my witness, aren't you?
Yes, ma, I am.
So Ubuntu, is it Western?
No, it's an African term, ma.
Thank you. Then the second reason why I want you to look at it, I want you to rethink what I stated, that societal happiness actually springs from the individual to society. Well, you can see that in the case of Ubuntu, because it's an African concept, it's telling us that it springs from society onto the individual, okay, which is clearly an African situation. But of course, that's a variety. That this particular point is my own personal variety. So you could also think about it after the class and consider whether you prefer my position, which of course is Western, because my own position, I've developed it. I've developed my own position from the philosophies of great jurists such as Thomas Aquinas, Augustine of Hippo, Friedrich Nietzsche, Ludwig Wittgenstein. You know, these are basically a mix of the philosophies of Germans and Catholicism, the Catholic Church and Germans. I like German philosophers and jurists. Of course, when you come to 500 level, you are going to read Immanuel Kant and all of those people who are Germans. But I'm not too keen into Kant, although I am keen on Hegel. You are going to study Hegel and Kant, George Wilfred Hegel, and you're going to study Kant. These are all German philosophers. So my own position springs from the success, remember, the success of Western philosophy. I'm not apologetic about it, that Western philosophy has been successful because, of course, when you fly the airplane, it's Western philosophy. When you go to Mars, it's Western philosophy. And it springs, Western philosophy springs from, hear me clearly, from an amalgamation and balance of Catholicism, Catholic philosophy, and the philosophy of Germans.
Yes, ma'am.
To make
My
myself,
own position. Okay. Okay, I think for my position, I think I'm agreeing with you, not even on the basis of Western, but I believe that it all stems from individuals to the society. It all stems from one person to the society at large. Like I believe that a family is a unit that produces the society at large. So whatever principles, whatever objective, whatever thing, it all starts with somebody. We all starts with a person, then proceeds to flow into group of persons, group of people, and the society at large. So I think I'm leaning into your position, ma.
Thank you very much. And I hope you read a bit wider. You know, I was going to say that if you look at Western philosophy and the emergence of a clear civilization, and you know, it started basically with the works of Friedrich Nietzsche. Why? Because before Friedrich Nietzsche, the West, they were key on Catholic principles, the priesthood and the direction of the church. But it was Friedrich Nietzsche who came up to describe what he called the Übermensch, to say that, look, let's look at the individual. Let's look at what the individual, within the individual is the driving force to do great things. And for him, it's the morality, the determination of what morality is within the individual that drives ethical principles in society. So you see, it's an amalgamation of those two. So I hope you read more of that. Now, the Ubuntu is the African position that, you know, and again, I discovered that the African position cannot make a society thrive. Because when you focus on the collective, it's not that it's not a good, please understand me, I'm not saying it's not a good philosophy, but I'm saying, where does it lead us? Is that what equity is doing? No. So while both of them merge at the objective, the goal is to improve the human condition. Both Ubuntu and equity, as it stands, as a principle from the West, now why both of them have a goal? The goal is, how do we improve society? The African one is not likely to improve society. The reason being that by experience, the more you try to pull the collective, the more the collective pulls down the individual. Do you understand me? So the extended family system in Africa, you see that it doesn't work. The more you focus on the extended family system, the more it drives corruption, the more it drives diverse vices in society. including justice delivery itself. You take the example of Nigeria. Let me tell you, I don't view corruption the way other people view it. Some people say, oh, corruption, they should bring in the Chinese position of, oh, or these Orientals. I don't believe in Oriental philosophy. Even though the Chinese, they have wealth, I don't believe in their philosophy. So some people say, bring it to Nigeria. If a person is corrupt, kill him. I don't believe it will improve society. Because why is this person corrupt? You will find that it's the society driving corruption in Nigeria. It's the extended family system. Most of these people get this money because they have come from a structure where they see poverty around them. You understand? So when they have that small opportunity, they want to collect money for their family members because they don't like the poverty around them. So they want to help Mr. Lagbaja, they want to help Mrs. Lagbaja, they want to help Mrs. Chineye, they want to help everybody around. Do you understand? Which is a failure system. If you look at the West, what they try to do is to ensure that each has a basis for existence and survival. And it's working. I'm not saying it's perfect, but it's working. At least every person has a means to live. And that's, well, it's so vast. I don't want to go too much into it. The main thing is I want to draw your attention to the driving force of equity. And the driving force of equity is simply look at the conscionability of the actions of the parties. Okay, that is what equity is interested in. And who is equity against? The individual who is acting unconscionably. I'll listen to Oladipupo and I'll move to the next question. Yes, please. Oladipupo. You're raising your hand.
Yeah, good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
I just wanted to contribute to what you said about corruption. It's not really a contribution. It's not.
Please go on.
Yes, man. I agree with your view. That the Chinese philosophy is not doesn't look like it should be applied to Nigeria because when we look at corruption in Nigeria, it's more like a
Can you speak up? We can barely hear you, Oladipupo, and I know your contributions are always very vital. Can you speak up?
Yes, ma'am. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, I'm hearing you now better.
I said we can't apply the Chinese philosophy to Nigeria because I think that's their system that is just to them. So I don't think Nigeria. But I feel that corruption in Nigeria it's more like a systematic issue. Can you hear me, ma?
Yeah, go on.
But I think it's more like a systematic because when we Nigerian system, I think everybody is just trying to.
Please, 190601060. Please mute your phone, please. Yes, go on, Oladi.
So I was saying that I think it's more like a systematic issue because
a systemic. You mean systemic?
Huh? It's a systemic issue, man.
Yeah.
Because when you if you interrogate the society, you see that everybody is just trying to get to the top so that they can also have their piece of it. And at times, it also depends on the people that are around them because people around them can tell them that, oh, when you get there, I need this. So there's a lot of pressure on people that even when they are holding privileged positions, they feel that they should just take an amount and they should people pressure them to take more than what they are meant to benefit naturally. So I think those things affect our country as a whole.
Exactly. I agree with you. And that is what also affects the justice system, doesn't it? Because
yes, it affects the justice.
Yes, because these judges are not, they are human beings. They have brothers, they have sisters. So when you need something, you can corrupt the system if you know the brother of the sister of the judge, isn't it?
Yes, I also want to one example. We if we look at a recent case between, like the recent case of a governor, Yaya Bello, and the case of Tele Farotimi, who was arrested. When Yaya Bello was arrested, he was not handcuffed. In fact, he had people that were surrounding him, like escorts were surrounding him and taking him to court. He wasn't even treated like as if he had done anything. He just entered the court and everything was distinct. But when Farotimi was arrested, he was handcuffed and he was being pushed around like a criminal, even when he still had the presumption of innocence. But Yaya Bello was treated differently in that scenario.
Exactly. And what happened to Donald Trump when he was charged? You could see him. They actually took a mock shot of him, right?
Yes.
They didn't treat him in any way specially. So you see the two systems. So the point is that ethical principles must proceed from the individual. And it's a human being, it's an individual that actually drove that system. You know, for me, I credit the push to Frederick Nietzsche, because Frederick Nietzsche was completely radical in his approach to jurisprudence. You understand? He was radical in it. I'm not saying that he's all correct, but I admire the way he is of course known as one of the original. He was the one who pushed back against Christianity in the way it was being structured at that time. And Christianity, of course, that is the good thing about the Western society. When Frederick Nietzsche kicked against Christianity, and don't forget, Frederick Nietzsche was a fourth generation child of Lutheran pastors. So his family was purely Christian. So, but he pushed against Christianity that way. Christianity was creating a slavish spirit. But then Christianity again responded to that position and changed its acts. You understand? They didn't say, oh, kill him. No, they just responded to that position and changed their own acts. So evolution and revolution, they both go together. Do you understand? And so continue to structure society until we have a good society. And what is a good society? A good society is where is a society that thrives in freedom, but true freedom, real freedom, not vitiated freedom. You remember your thoughts. Consent, not vitiated consent, not vitiated freedom, where people are being pushed to be free or people are living in fear. No, it is where the voluntary nature of human beings is to do good. The voluntary nature of a human being is ethical. The voluntary nature of the human being is not to steal. The voluntary nature of the human being is to do good to the other person. Whether you're in secret or in public, you are not doing good because there's somebody holding a cane. You are doing good because it is natural to you. And because of that, because the individual is doing good, it expands to society. Because if everybody is doing good and we just have only a few deviants, like one or two, you understand, the society will be coherent. There will be hegemony and people can live and thrive. You can then fulfill your goals, the innermost goal of a human being, which is to contribute to society, to live this out better than you met it. That is the ultimate goal of the human nature. And that is what equity does. Now, the second question is contracts. From your study of contracts, what do you think that the law on contract makes sense? Do you think it makes sense? Do you think it makes sense? And don't think that I have veered off from my class, because I have not. Okay? Let nobody here think that I've veered off from my class. I have not. This is I teach. The way I teach, I'm teaching you in a way that will make the topics I'm teaching you, the course I'm involved in, make it a part of you, an inherent part of you. I don't want you. I hate to see a script that is from the textbook. I don't like to see it. I want to see a script, an answer that tells me that you have heard me. You have heard me. You have heard my voice. And my voice is going with you. And your own voice is going with me. Do you understand? I was just saying to a junior counsel earlier today, let me just read the message he sent to me, and I will tell you, I want to tell you the way I operate. You see, he said to me, "Thank you, ma, for giving me the opportunity to work for you." Right? Did you hear me? Did you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
He says to me, "Thank you, ma, for giving me the opportunity to work for you." And I said to him, this is my junior counsel, I said to him, "I thank you for your partnership you have impacted on me." And I gave him the shalom emoji as well as the more power emoji. So I gave him the shalom emoji and more power to your elbows emoji. I'm sure you know the more power to your elbows emoji. Do you know that?
Yes, ma. Yes, ma.
Exactly. So you see, I like my class to be interactive. So I'm impacting on you and I'm telling you the truth. Sometimes students also impact on me. There are times that I write an article based on the contributions or views of students. And in fact, I'll have to let you know that the most important article that has been written on contract, the law of contract, came from a 200 level student of Harvard Law School. So you see, so apply your mind, use your mind. That is what I want to do in my class. That is my own method of teaching. So don't think I've veered off my class. I am perfectly in my class of teaching you 3 related equitable remedies. One is rescission, the other one is rectification, and the other one is delivery of. Okay, they are all based on the ethical position of equity. Act conscionably if you are a human being. If you act, there are ways a human being will act. And we must ask the question, is this a human being or is a beast? And may those questions not arise in relation to us or indeed our society. So you see, so now based on this, could you please address the question, what is your view of contracts in human engagements? I'm waiting for answers. Okay, so yes, oh thank God. I was going to think that David Suberu. So I know that's not your first name. I'm sorry, but I cannot see your first name.
Oh no, David Suberu is okay. Good
Okay.
afternoon.
Good afternoon.
So I think contracts just helps to ensure that people do exactly what they say they will do. It's almost still in line with ethics. It's like if you say something or you promise to do something, then you have to do what you promise to do. So contract makes you like stand on your word and fulfill your word.
Exactly. And let me ask you, David. Okay, your first name is Kayode. It's appeared now. Now, let me ask you, if a person does not do what he says he will do, how does it impact on society?
I think it makes promises less credible and almost makes people want to take matters in their own hands.
Exactly. Excellent. And is the society in which people take things matters into their hands. Do you think that is a society that is thriving?
No, it's almost an unequal society, so, quote unquote. Like it's almost a
Yes,
lawless society.
lawless. A lawless society, isn't it?
Yes, ma'am.
Hello? Is there a society that reminds you of that position? A present society that reminds you of that position?
Off the top of my head, I think the only society that reminds me somewhat of that, it will be Afghanistan at the moment.
Okay. Not Nigeria. Not Nigeria. Kyle, they were still listening to you. I think we lost him. So, of the individual to keep his promise. And the undertone to that will be that before you make a promise, think clearly. Okay? Think clearly. Don't just make promises without thinking. Right? So, what are the things you think that would create exceptions to that position? What are the human characteristics, the human nature that, if untrained, can lead to that that can create a position where, yes, somebody has made a promise, okay, which ultimately is in accordance with law, or let's even not make it in accordance with law. Let's just still leave it fluid. What are the things that you think that can create exceptions so that a person who has made a promise can be excused from that promise, from fulfilling that promise? Let me repeat myself. Somebody has made a promise, and the general position that will make a society thrive is that the person should keep the promise. But I'm saying now that, yes, to every general rule, there are exceptions. What do you think should be exceptions to that position so that, yes, somebody has made a promise, but the person can be excused from making that promise? And I still want you to focus on contract law and other general ways that exceptions can be created. Yes, please. Olawumi, I'm listening. Okay, wait. Sorry?
When you were speaking, two things came to mind. The first one is frustration. Okay. The second one is debt. So in an instance where you have an agreement with your supplier and he's in a foreign country, and the foreign country declares war on your country, in such an instance that you cannot do trade transactions, in such an instance, it can be said that the contract has been frustrated by forces beyond the parties. Then if you
Olawumi, before you go to that, I even want you to point out. I want you to point out something within the validity of a contract. You are going now to the point that the contract has been made, but we are still talking about promises. We are still talking about promises, and I'm saying, in what circumstances should somebody be excused, even though he or she has made a promise? We can excuse the person from that promise before you even go to the point that, oh, yes, the person, there's been a contract and then there's frustration. What other things should we look at to excuse the person from even the promise itself?
I'm not sure, but I think the person's capacity to perform the contract.
What are the elements of a contract? What is the
The
first element? What's the first
offer,
element? What's the first element? Okay.
offer,
What's the second?
acceptance,
What is the third?
consideration.
Before
Abi?
consideration. Before consideration.
I think intention to enter legal
You know,
relation.
exactly. You know, there are weights according to each of those elements. The first element is offer. The first element is the promise. The second element is the acceptance of the promise. But the third one, when you were making that promise, was there an intention to keep the promise in a legal form? Okay? So, before the law can intervene in the promise of a person, there must be that intention to invite the law into the matter. If there is no intention for the matter to come before the law, which means there is no intention to create legal relations, okay, then the promise will be excused, isn't it?
Yes, ma'am.
By law.
Yes, ma'am.
But without the law, what would you say about that element to create legal relation that the law has brought in? What would you say about that? Without the law.
I feel that element is very essential to ensure that both parties keep their end of the contract. And if that element is exempted, the contract will most likely not be fulfilled.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, let's also listen to Babarindi.
Okay, ma'am.
Yeah,
Okay.
Babarindi.
Okay, ma. So I want to say that based on intention. I remember when you talked about the issue of people being good or doing good, because there's also the question of what if my intention, what if I do not steal, what if I come into a contract and my intentions to perform that contract is not pure or will not make me or not end up or making me perform that contract. So that's why I say that intention to enter a contract is actually very, very important. And that intention should not be or should not want to harm the other person that will want to come into that contract.
Or even harm society.
Harm society. Yes.
Okay. Onyi somebody. The name is not clear to me because it's not coming out well on my own system. Go on. The next person, Onyi. Onyi, okay. Okay, all right. Go on.
I think in addition to what everybody has said, one thing that would make parties not to keep their promise or that would distract the party from having to fulfill the promise made under a contract is if the party in question has probably contracted under a misrepresentation that was perpetuated by the other party, probably like a fraudulent misrepresentation, which has led him to voluntarily, come into that contract, but then he came into the contract under a false or a wrong assumption that was
Excellent. So you see now that word of vitiated, the freedom to contract, where the freedom to contract, you see, vital, the driving force of contract is freedom of the parties to contract in the present. That freedom to contract must be present. You know, I mentioned to you in your thought, you learned that where consent is vitiated, it is no longer consent. Consent must be real. Therefore, consent is unreal where it is vitiated. This again runs through the law. It runs through contract. So, you see, when there are things that are not, that work against the freedom of the parties, the original freedom of the parties to even make that initial promise, then of course you can see that there is no ethics in the outcome of interaction of the parties. So if the interaction of the parties cannot be related to ethics, is not ethical, then of course, it's not improving society in any way. It's not improving the human condition. You see? So that is what equity is doing. What equity is trying to do is to improve, you see, because there's when we all found ourselves in this life, as humans, we were born. Nobody went to plead with anybody to be born. You just found yourself better, right? You just found yourself in life here. So what a civilized society should do is to actually zone cut off. I don't know. Shay, please look into this. Why should it cut off? Shay, please let the class
Yes,
rep
ma.
look into this. What is it? I
I
wonder
think it's a
why
network,
cut
ma.
off. The class is not my network.
Sorry,
Okay, all right.
it's
So, okay, now,
still
so
on the
what
call.
a civilized society does? Yeah, we're still here. I'm here now. I think the class is still here. Now, so what is anyway? So please, you understand where we're going. Now, the other question is the question of the legitimacy of the remedy we are looking at. Rescission. Rescission is just the process by which somebody can say, look, I no agree, I no do again. Yes, I made this promise, but I'm not going to fulfill it. Okay? That rescission. Rectification, simply put, is yeah,
Sorry, ma, we can't hear you anymore.
Can we continue on Wednesday, please? You're not hearing me.
Yes, Papa.
Yes,
Yes, Papa, can hear
We
you,
can
ma.
hear you,
Okay,
ma.
okay, please we'll continue on Wednesday.
No
All right,
problem, ma.
thank you, ma.
Okay, ma.
Thank you
Thank
very
you.
much for the class. Thank you for your interaction and participation.
Thank you, ma.
Thank you, ma.
Very welcome. Very welcome.
Thank you, ma.
Bye. Thank you too.